Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lion, the Way, and the War, where we talk about Jesus, his church, and the spiritual battle that surrounds us all. My name is Craig Allison, and I'll be your host. All right, today I'm excited to be sitting down with Tim Gann. Tim is a transfer student. He came to us this year. And you said you're a junior, right? You transferred as a junior. Where were you before?
I was at a volunteer state community college in Gallatin, Tennessee.
Okay, volunteer state. So we made contact. You actually reached out to us this past summer. Came down, made a visit with us. Got to see the student center, and then you continue to keep in touch with me during the rest of the summer. A couple times you're like, man, I'm so excited to be coming down. And, that's a unusual thing to have students plug into us at that level. Normally we're chasing students down and trying to get them to come check us out and be plugged into the student center. But from day one, man, you hit the ground running. You came, you showed up. I believe you were at pretty much all of our Welcome Week events. And you've just kind of sustained that interest in our campus ministry. So I'm gonna get back to that. I'm gonna ask you some questions regarding, because that's a different approach that we don't often see. So I want to kind of pick your brain on that. But before we get to that, just for the audience, the listeners, to get a little bit of idea of who you are. So where are you from? Where's home?
Gallatin, Tennessee.
Okay, Gallatin, Tennessee, and I assume you graduated high school there, right?
I did.
So volunteer state, and what were you studying there?
At the time, I was doing criminal justice, and that's why I got my associates in. And then when I transferred here, I decided to change it to exercise science.
Yeah, not an easy program. You probably know that already. So, and then what kind of interest do you have? Are you working anywhere? Do you have a job?
I have a job right now, just that's kind of supporting me while I'm on campus. So,
and obviously, I mean, you and I have talked, so I know the job that you have, and I'm still waiting. For those that don't know, Tim works at a coffee place, and I'm still waiting for him to bring me a cup of coffee. That hasn't happened yet, yeah. So it's okay. I'll keep reminding you. Maybe I'll have a good, nice, hot, fresh cup of coffee on my desk at some point here in the future. So exercise science, and you have a graduation date in mind yet? Do you have that figured out?
Well, I'm actually supposed to graduate in 2026, so the degree would take an extra year for me to complete.
Okay, so you're probably losing some credit hours and stuff transferring, or what's going on there?
Just because I hadn't done the degree before, so I think that's all it really was.
Okay, I gotcha. And then after you graduate, a degree in exercise science, what do you think you're going to be doing?
Well, I have a few routes I'm thinking about. I'm still kind of honestly figuring it out as I go. I'll probably just use this degree just as a way of trying to figure out how, the body works and exercise. But honestly, a lot of it's been great because of how detailed everything is. You can just see God's signature on everything.
Yeah. The body's an amazing thing. My body, probably not so much. I've got different pieces falling apart, but that's another story. All right, so kind of getting back to your pursuit, we'll call it that, your pursuit of the Student Center, wanting to come here and get plugged into a Christian ministry. What's that about?
Well, when I decided to transfer to UTC, I had no interest actually in any of this because, I've I've been to churches and stuff like that where there've been cliques and stuff like that, and my dad told me about this place, and when we were in orientation in April, he said we need to go here and just check it out, and I was like, all right, whatever, we'll see. And then when we walked in the door, I think immediately I never felt like so welcomed, and I felt like, man, these people are genuine, and that's what really grabbed my attention. I was like, these people really seem that they actually care.
Man, that's great to hear, because sometimes I don't hear that, and it just depends, I think, on a whole lot of circumstances. The first impressions are always important, and I talk to my student ambassadors, our leadership there at the Student Center, about making sure that everybody that walks in feels welcome. I try to, do that, as awkward as I am. probably scared off more people than actually have come back. But yeah, it's always great to hear that people do feel welcome when they come to the Student Center, and that's certainly something that we want to continue to do and even get better at. So I'm glad to hear that. So is your dad actually that cued you in to the Student Center?
Yeah.
Okay, well, kudos to your dad.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Brian. If you're watching this, it's your dad's name is Brian, right?
That's right.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Appreciate that, because Tim's been a great asset to us at the Student Center, and his involvement is great to see. Okay, so I've got a few questions here that we're going to probably just jump around and have some conversation about it. And if I ask anything that is off limits, just say, you know what, I'd rather not talk about that. Right. So the first thing, I'm trying to get this microphone positioned where it needs to be. So, talking about you getting plugged in and stuff, you signed up for our Adopt a Student program.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, we have members here at Central who will volunteer to basically take our college students in and, develop a relationship with them while they're away from home, kind of be the family away from home. And so you got assigned to a lady here at church, and I don't think she'll mind if I share. Tammy Crowder is your adoptive mom for however long we're going to go through this. And I think you guys she's already been out on a date with you, right?
we went to go get dinner last night.
Okay. Here's the cool thing about Tammy. She has had adoptive students before, and she still maintains, there's still that contact, and that speaks a lot to the type of person that she is. And so I think you've got a great adoptive mom here at Central that I'm hoping you guys will develop a good, deep, meaningful relationship with her. So you jumped into that, and you and I had some conversations not too long ago, and I think that this is a good conversation to have, because there's probably a lot of other college students that are going through or have gone through the same thing that you went through, and that is starting to just question whether or not you needed to be baptized again. Okay, and so part of our conversations revealed that you were pretty young the first time, and that's not uncommon, especially in the world of teenagers or preteens. They go to these summer camps, and there's this whole kind of like group think kind of thing. And so one kid decides he's going to get baptized, and then all of a sudden you got 50 other kids that decide they want to get baptized too. And that's just one example of kids getting baptized and maybe not understanding or fully realizing what they're doing. And so as they get a little bit older, they begin to think about that in a different level of maturity, and I guess just really begin to question whether or not they had been baptized for the right reasons. So you and I had that conversation, and we talked, and one of the things that I said, and I've been through this before with other college students, is that there's a lot of things in our life that we are not going to know about, we're going to be unsure about, we're going to have doubts about. Our baptism should never be one of those things. Absolutely. And so just share a little bit of your thought process behind that and what led you to the decision that you eventually made.
So when I got baptized at camp, that was probably in 2018. I was in high school. I wasn't old, but I wasn't young either. I was just a freshman, and I remember, I think whoever was preaching or teaching that night said something that really struck with me, and it made me want to change my life around. But at the same time, I feel like I was just scared, and like I just wanted to do it just to go to heaven. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I wasn't doing it for the right reasons. I didn't do it because I feel like I didn't love Jesus. And then just like a month ago, I was, the past few months, I was looking back on it, really reflecting it, and I was doubting it. And as you said, we're never supposed to doubt any of that, and that's very important. I was like, that's something that shouldn't be played with.
Yeah. So contrast that this when you were baptized again to the first time that happened. Like, what was there a difference in how you felt about it?
I felt good about it, but at the same time, I was also doubting, actually, like even God's existence at the time.
Yeah.
I wasn't too sure, and even after, I was doubting a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So, faith issues, working through faith issues is definitely a part of it. So, how are you actively working through that now? Like, where are you now as far as your faith journey is concerned?
For me, we're always gonna have dark times and stuff like that, and I've definitely been going through those a lot. I just have to remember that God knows what's best. He has a will, and nothing's gonna stop it. He has a plan for you. You have to just really trust him. You have to give all your trust to him.
Yeah.
And that's what I've had to do, and it's been hard, but I know it'll be worth it.
How does community play a part in those faith struggles for you?
Man, it's people being there for you, people inspiring you, and kind of reassuring you of your goals and all that. And so that's really helped a lot for me, especially with the CSC.
Yeah. And as you know, that's something that we work hard to establish community and establish relationships, because your story is so similar to so many other college students that we have. Anxiety and depression is at an all-time high for college students. There's just so much going on in this world that is negative, and as Christians, I think we need to be the light in this world that people are attracted to. And that doesn't mean that Christians are insulated or isolated from having dark thoughts, having, anxiety, depression, and that kind of stuff. But what makes the difference, what I hear over and over again, and you and I have talked a little bit about this too, is the importance that being surrounded by Christians makes all the difference a lot of times, to know that you have that community.
Sure does.
Yeah. I think that, there's a couple takeaways here. One, and, going back to what we talked about just a minute ago, despite the fact that, your dad kind of pushed you, but then he could only do so much, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you actively pursued, you were very intentional in getting plugged in, which to me, as I've gotten to know you, Tim, I'm just going to say this, and I hope it doesn't offend you. Like, you're a pretty shy, kind of reserved guy.
Yeah.
And so for you to actively pursue community, get involved in our Adopt a Student program. We're going to talk about small groups in a minute. But for you to do that, I would imagine that's not the easiest thing for you to do, right? Yeah. So I know that there's other listeners out there that struggle with shyness and kind of, what are you doing to make yourself get plugged in?
I definitely think we weren't put on this earth to go at it alone. So, and honestly, just over the years, I've really gotten to where I'd like to be around people, and they've given me strength, and they've given me happiness and joy just to be around. So,
yeah. So, like, have you ever, like, when you're in the car driving, do you like sing out loud in the car?
Sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you're always so just very, kind of just super, super chill. And, it's just like talking, and I'm like, okay, so what did you say again? I didn't hear you. My hearing's not great anyway. But, I remember the first time that you came over to our house. And here again, this is just such a contrast. And, I think your personality is that you put yourself out there, and then you're at our house, and it, I can tell it's kind of awkward for you. Like, you're sort of standing there, and you're not really knowing what to say or who to talk to or where to stand,
Yeah.
But you came anyway, man. You were there, and that speaks volumes to it. So talk a little bit about what your thoughts are behind that. It's a small group. We host a small group on Sunday nights at our house, and we have college students, we have some young professionals there, and we have some older couples there. Is that a new experience for you?
It is, yeah. It's definitely just been very eye opening just to see like different age levels and all that. But I've really gotten to enjoy getting to know like Brandon, Hunter, Evan. I feel like I've gotten to get more comfortable with the dogs and all that around there too. But I feel like I've really just since going to your house the first time, I've definitely those relationships have like grown tremendously. And honestly, coming to your house is probably my favorite part of the week. One of my favorite parts.
You asked me, hey, you guys having small group tonight?
Yeah.
And we love having you there. And I've noticed that you're beginning to get more comfortable around us, which is good to see. That's good to see. What's the best part about small groups?
Man, I feel like there's enough of us to where we can like have like a share similarities to where it's not shared with completely everyone, and we can also just like form a really tight bond, and so that's been a lot for me just to get off my chest. I can share things with people and not share it with everybody. So
right. So the right answer on that was you were supposed to say, well, Craig, my favorite thing about small groups is your cooking.
Oh, yeah.
That's your cooking is superb. That's the only reason I come to small groups. It's okay, though. I'll let you off the hook on that one. Only if you bring me a cup of coffee.
All right, we'll see.
All right, so, talking about small groups, that's a new experience for you. Talk a little bit about your Christian background as far as, the church you went to, your youth group experience in high school. What was that like?
Well, I grew up in the church my whole life, and we switched like churches and stuff like that. We've always gone to Church of Christ, and the church I'm going to now, Hartsville Pike, we're all the same age, and then eventually people start to kind of split and do their own thing. A few of us have stuck around, but most of them have went to college and all that, and most of them were already like older than I was, and then I just feel like not a lot of us stuck together. There were very few that did, and it was always kind of sometimes hard to talk to some of them because I feel like they weren't really always very fully committed to like God, and we all acted very childish at a lot of times.
So did you have, in high school, did you have a youth minister?
Yeah.
Okay, and that was at this church or a different church?
Yeah, well, I think when we got there, they didn't have one, and then they got one, and then he was there for a few years, and he had to leave for certain reasons. But the one we have now, he's really great, and I think right now they're doing a great job. Like since I left, and I was like, of course it'd happen when I leave.
Yeah, that's how it always happens.
Of course they get everything together, but the youth minister over there now, I was friends with him before that, and when he told me he was going to be the youth minister, I was like, yeah, right. But honestly, like he's done a really great job.
Yeah. So what do you think makes a good, effective youth ministry? And here's the reason I'm asking is because a lot of times as college students enter college for that first year, their freshman and their sophomore year, how their youth ministry went, a lot of time, and well, there's other things too there with parents and home and church leadership and all of that all plays a part in it. But youth ministry does impact whether or not a kid stays plugged into their faith while they're in college. And unfortunately, the vast majority of them don't. They don't come to church when they get to college. They basically lose their faith. And so I always like to ask college students their experience, what type of youth program that they had while they were in college, what that looked like. So, if you were going to, I guess, give your youth ministry experience as a kid, as a high school kid in a youth program at church, how would you, goods, bads, pros and cons to that? How would you rate that?
Well, I feel like, it's first of all, the youth minister, like I used to think, I didn't really pay attention to how hard of a job it was, but now just looking at just the stress and the toll it takes on that person, it's insane, and I definitely couldn't do that job. just because they're there all the time, and they're trying to really help these kids, form them to being Christians. Like they have to do that part, but also it's part of the parents'
Right.
part too.
Right.
And I definitely think as a youth minister, like you gotta form those like personal relationships with them, and you also have to like, I don't want to just say like you have to teach really good lessons all the time, but you have to teach things that are meaningful and relevant to like kind of like the group around.
Yeah, you got to know how to talk to that
Yes.
age and relate to them. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I feel like you can't just talk to like about broad subjects all the time. You have to be very specific, and and so that their faith can grow, when they leave and like out in college or work or whatever. So
yeah. So how was your experience going through that?
well, I think at first I didn't really care. I didn't really pay attention. I mean, there's lessons that really stuck out to me, and I tried to stick it out. Try to be a good Christian, and all that, and then life would get in the way, and I just wouldn't care. But like here, the past year, honestly, just the past few months, before I left for college, I noticed like things were starting to change, and I was starting to change, and I feel like what was happening over there, more of an impact was happening. I feel like the lessons were more meaningful, or maybe it was just me taking things more serious. And so I think a part of it has to be you have to be willing to take that step as well, not just the youth minister.
Okay, so was this your senior year of high school that things began to change for you, and you began to, I guess, things began to resonate more with you, or is this after you'd already left and you were still at that church, but you were at Vol State?
Well, Vol State is in the same area, so I was still living at home.
Right.
So it was probably just like my sophomore year, and like at Vol State, I was starting to really pay attention to stuff. And honestly,
gotcha.
Just this past year, I've really just started to actually care.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it's maturity, but also like life experiences. Because when I graduated high school, I didn't even really want to do college, and so my dad made me go to college. And I'm really glad he did. I was in the work. I worked in all that a lot, mostly full time. I've worked at different places, and I feel like I got experience of like life experience and college experience. But I feel like doing that also made me grow and mature more.
Okay.
It just made me realize I can't do this without God, and we're not supposed to. So.
Okay. So self-reflection then.
Yes.
You begin to just sort of have these thoughts in your heads and get more serious with your faith. Unfortunately, a lot of kids don't do that. They don't have that strong background, that intergenerational connection at church. They're coming from a lot of times churches that have gone through splits, and there's not good leadership there. Their youth program is basically just like activities based, so there's not a whole lot of meaningful studies. And I mean, the sad statistic is that they get to college, and if they drift away their freshman or sophomore year, they typically don't come back. They're gone for the rest of their college career, and then the statistics also bear out that they're out of church. They leave their faith, so we lose them, and so. Trying to hone in on people like you who have beat those odds, that, I wouldn't say like you're just in the greatest place, like the strongest place ever of your faith, but, that initial risk, that big risk that so many college students face, you've navigated that. You've been intentional about being plugged into a campus ministry, developing relationships, developing a community, and doing that despite your personality, which is like really introverted. The fact that we're on this podcast, it's, speak because you're like, hey man, I'd like to be on the podcast sometime. You seem to be a pretty big fan of the podcast, so
I've been listening to it a lot.
I know, so thank you for that. But there's just such this like dynamic contrast between what I typically see. Normally, a college student in your position right now that we're having conversations like this that that they've plugged in are very outgoing, outspoken, very extroverted.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying here live on air to capture what it is that you've done as an introverted, shy kind of guy to latch on to this.
Well,
for all the other shy people out there that are listening to this, what you have to say may be really important.
For most of my life, I feel like, I've been shy for most of my life, and I've done mostly a lot of stuff just alone. I didn't really have too many friends. And then to a point, you kind of get tired of that because you realize, this is kind of miserable, so I don't want to be like this anymore. I don't want to feel like this. And so you get to, get out in the world and start to, see things from a different perspective. You get to see, like, there are good people and there are bad people, but I think for the most part, there are a lot of good people out there, and I think that can be very inspiring.
Was there a moment that you realized, I need people? Like, was there a low that you realized I've got to change, something's got to give?
I mean, I still have moments like, it was like, oh man, I just want to be alone. I just don't want anyone to bother me. But at the same time, it's just like, I don't want to be alone. Like, I need people, I can't do it alone. We're not supposed to. Like, I wouldn't be able to do a lot of things I've done, like overcome things without, people on my side, just mentors like my dad or just friends I've had. I probably would have really gotten baptized, if it wasn't, for other people pointing things out and me reflecting on it.
Yeah, but there's that piece of it where, people can point out things and they can suggest, but there's a point where you, as an individual, have to decide, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Well, it gets you thinking. So,
I talk a lot about intentionality, putting yourself out there. I, by nature, some people may be surprised to hear this, I'm introverted. And as you said something that really resonated with me, where you still have those moments where it's like you need the alone time.
Sometimes.
You got to decompress from all the noise and stuff because it can overwhelm you. So you have to have that. And the risk for introverted people is to get caught up in a cycle of being alone.
And you get in your head.
Exactly. Yeah, getting in your head. So you've also signed up. We're going to Costa Rica in May. You've signed up to go to that too. Oh, yeah. So this speaks to this being intentional as a reserved, introverted person to defeat that that cycle that seems to be so prevalent right now in your age demographic. And there's a lot of depression and anxiety, and those who are more like have a propensity to be alone, I think, are more susceptible to that. That's been my experience anyway. Just this past week, we had a kid right across from the student center that overdosed, and I haven't heard if that's been purposeful or accidental, but that's 4 this semester that have lost their lives. And so it speaks to the element that the stress, I think, of the world and just, all of the things that you guys are bombarded with right now, the comparison and not being enough and social media and everything just constantly in your face, exacerbates and leads to depression and anxiety and all of that stuff. So I'm saying all that to say that fundamentally, people that have a personality like mine and yours are more susceptible to getting drawn into that cycle, that dark cycle. Okay, and man, it's so important that we latch on to whatever it is that you are pursuing that is helping you break out of that cycle and not fall victim to that. Okay. And maybe I'm wrong, but from an outside perspective, looking at you, I see a guy who is being very intentional about plugging into stuff, even though it's out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Well, for the most part, I want to do this stuff, and I'm excited to do it. And I feel like those are opportunities, and those opportunities shouldn't be wasted. Yeah. So that's the way I kind of look at it.
So take hold of opportunities when they arise.
Yes.
Okay. Good. I've got one more main question here that I want to ask you. What do you think is the biggest threat to your faith during this time in your life right now?
Overthinking, just in my head. It's like, when I am alone, I'm at the CSC, most of the time, but, was just like me when I'm walking home, or I'm in my dorm or apartment, or just in my truck, just driving around, I'll get in my head and I'll overthink it to the point where it's almost like poisonous, just to your soul and to your spirit. And just here lately, I've had to just learn to let that go. I have to put my faith in it. I'm just going to give this to God. I'm not going to worry about it, because God doesn't want us to worry. Worrying's useless. It doesn't do us any good. There's a point where we have to act on certain things, but I've had to put all my faith in Him, and that's honestly, it's really helped, and it's given me peace and comfort.
How do you let it go?
Just pray on it, and I just tell God, I was like, look, God, I'm gonna give this to you. I'm gonna let you take care of this, because I know I know your future for me is gonna be great. I'm gonna have hope in that, and I have to have faith I have faith in you.
Prayer.
Yes.
And that's works for you.
Yeah, it does.
You've heard me teach a class about the power of prayer. It's kind of like this superpower that God has given us that so many Christians don't realize just how effective and impactful prayer is. Yeah. As a matter of fact, coming up this weekend, starting Saturday, Central is doing 24 hours of prayer, where we have church members that are signed up to come and spend an hour here nonstop praying. And I would ask those that are listening, beginning at 12 noon this coming Saturday through 12 noon on Sunday, to pray for your community, pray for the church, pray for the Lord's hand to be on the Chattanooga city, the area, because there's struggles here just like in every other community. But to spend an hour in prayer, you can come join us at Central during any of those times and pray with us, because we're going to be praying about a lot of different stuff. And I'm so glad to hear that, as a college student, you've already figured that out, that prayer actually works.
I wouldn't be here without it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we always close out with final thoughts, and grab my social media device here. I'm going to read 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 13 through 15. And we're going to do something different now, because if you're listening, I want you to go ahead and take this time right now to pull up your phone and read this along with me. Before we do that, I just want to thank all of our listeners. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We need more subscribers, and you'll get notified anytime we have a podcast that's up and ready to watch. And consider being a sponsor of this show. We're always looking for sponsors. So if you've got something that you want to get out there and have other people hear about, let us know. If you've got a topic that you would like to hear us talk about and address specifically, let us know that too, and we'll be happy to cover that. I've got some exciting guests lined up to be on our podcast in the upcoming weeks, so you're not going to want to miss those. And one in particular I'm working on, and if that actually happens, I'm going to be super excited. And I think a lot of people will be surprised to see one of our upcoming guests coming on. Okay, so final thoughts. 1 Peter chapter 1, beginning in verse 13. Therefore, preparing your minds for action and being sober-minded, set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance, but as He who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. Since it is written, "You shall be holy, for I am holy." Until next week, thank you for listening to The Lion, the Way, and the War. Be kind to one another, and remember the Creator of this universe loves you so much that He gave up His only Son for you. Have a blessed day.